article on queer theory, it was stated that the ideas we have in our head about what constitutes maleness, femaleness, and what constitutes normal are all socially constructed. It seems like this concept has been embedded in my women's studies courses. If we place an emphasis on the social construction of gender roles and gender norms, it is easier to understand queer theory. Queer theory basically challenges the normalized theories of sexuality and gender. Queer theory emphasizes sexuality as a spectrum and gender roles as being performed. The idea of masculinity and femininity are not biological. They are products of social construction of gender and the power structure that is set in place. The article also mentions the discrimination within the LGBTQ community. I think this is important to talk about because it shows how deeply embedded into all of us is some type of discriminatory behavior. And I think this behavior is reflective of a power structure that's within a marginalized community. The part of the article that stood out to me the most was the white people ruin everything section, where it was mentioned that many Native American cultures had a third gender. And this third gender was called their two-spirit, which was comprised of a masculine and feminine quality. And most of these non-conforming people were the first to be killed off by the European colonizers. So this was completely new information for me, and that kind of shows how parts of our history were completely wiped out and erased. And the American educational system teaches us what they want us to learn, but they don't teach us the facts. So I think if we can somehow start to reflect this truth onto the younger generations, we may be able to implement some change. In the video, Judith Butler, Your Behavior Creates Gender, they made controversial claim that gender is performative, which basically reiterates the notion that gender is a social construction, and biologically, there is no gender. People perform gender roles based on the rules and regulations that society has put in place. They also discussed tomboys and sissies and how things like bullying are ways that people are put in line so that they stay with whatever is normalized. So they stay with those gender roles. And I think it is important for people to understand that a lot of what they are taught is a matter of opinion, not fact. A lot of people's values and ideas come from the things that they were taught at home by their families. And it's sad to me that we don't learn these things early on in school when our minds are the most vulnerable to acceptance. It's before we have these deep embedded values and thoughts of this is how the world should be because this is what my parents told me about the world. I think that's very important. I want to respond to Garland's vlog number 7, where she mentioned how it's unfair that people dismiss the pronouns of people that are gender non-conforming. And this comment stood out to me because personally, as I was preparing to record my vlog and discuss this Judith Butler interview, I was not sure which pronoun to use. And that really affected me because I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to use the normalized he or she, but it was embedded in my mind to call her she. And still to this moment, I don't know whether they identify as they, them, theirs, or she, her, hers, or maybe even he, him, his. So I agree.